Welcome back, Rage Nation. Got myself Pete here.
That's not really exciting.
You got Senior Dixon.
I don't think that's appropriate.
And we got Monsieur Leopard.
Explorers deserved it. No.
Absolutely.
I was disgusted. I cannot believe they've done this.
Bio's wacky, Bio's not good, it's just nonsense.
I disagree on that. That's not possible.
We're getting the band back together. We're on a mission. Yeah.
Now we've got a whole new list of things to complain about.
Welcome back, Rage Nation. We are at it again. Got myself Pete here with Monsignor Dixon. We're going to do something a little different today. We had, on request, a good friend of the show, Tom, reach out to us and said, hey, I want to blog some questions about the Rage Quit Wired. I'm like, cool, let's do an audio format as well. That way you can reference it and remember the stupid stuff we're about to talk about. So, Tom, I'm gonna let you rip this, man. You can proceed however you want.
Sounds good. Many thanks, guys. Really appreciate you doing this. I'm going to start with the obvious question. Let's hear your in the beginning story. Like it could be your part of your life or how you got into games.
I would say, how far do we want to go back in the beginning?
Yeah, just feel free to expand on whatever you want.
Well, I guess as just a general nerd, I mean, I've always been a nerdy dude. I played video games for a long time, and I enjoyed all the old school nerdy movie shows and all that stuff. But I didn't get into like tabletop gaming probably until, I don't know, it was like 1998 maybe. So I had buddies that they were flipping through a 40K core rule book and they were all picking out their armies. I was like, you know what? This one looks pretty cool. So I ended up getting into, tabletop gaming pretty early. I think like 10th grade of high school or something like that. So, and the funny story about tabletop gaming is I joined the military in 2003. And I kind of put that all away for a while because, you know, when you're in the Army, you're just doing a couple of specific things, specifically probably getting hammered and finding chicks. And so I put that away, and then I started dating my wife, and we ended up getting, you know, engaged. And while I was deployed overseas, all of a sudden I started getting back into like tabletop gaming. I was just like, oh, this looks cool. That looks cool. So randomly, all these nerd boxes start showing up at our apartment. And she's like, what is this stuff? I was like, oh, yeah, you haven't seen this stuff before because I've hidden it in my deep past. But it is coming back, and it is 40K. So hooray.
My favorite hobby.
Dixon, how about you? How'd you become a nerd?
I've always been a nerd. Always. My dad, bless his heart, he's like the main reason why like I know boxing. I did track. I did a whole bunch of stuff. I went to the military. It's thanks to my dad pushing me constantly. He's like, you can't just be in your house. You have to leave. So he would kick me out of the house. So like I would be outside and do stuff.
For the younger people, our parents used to lock the doors so we couldn't come back in the house.
Absolutely. He would specifically go into my room and like be like, no, you gotta get out. You're a man.
Yeah.
You have to do stuff. And long story short, I got into the military and I got into gaming with miniatures for the first time when I was in the Navy. And I was like, oh, I didn't know this existed. And I found out that more people in the military did it too. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. I've always been competitive, regardless of like I did racing, like with skates, like I said, boxing. I did a whole bunch of stuff competitively because, you know, that's in my nature. So I try to be competitive 40K, then War Machine. And in the middle of me being competitive in War Machine, that's how I found Malifaux. And it was funny because it was like my buddy Bill, he put Baby Cade and Candy and explained to me what they were. And then immediately I was
So we got to blame Bill for you playing Neverborn.
No, I actually hated Neverborn for the first like 5 years of the game. I'm not even joking.
Like Bayou.
Yeah, I hated Bayou for like the first.
Not till we start talking.
Yeah. For like the first 12 years of the game, I hated Bayou. That's how stupid that was. Anyway, so yeah, I got into Malifaux as a side game first, and then it's always been one of those games where it's just like, man, this is so fun, regardless of what I'm like, if win or lose. It's just like,
Dude, it is crazy how many military people love tabletop gaming. There are so many military dudes that just get into wargaming. It's unreal.
yeah, that's true.
Are you from Puerto Rico, Dixon?
He doesn't know.
What?
Oh.
Wait, I didn't hear.
Are you from Puerto Rico?
Yes, I am actually from the island of Puerto Rico. So like over here, unfortunately, the only miniature game that they play is 40K. I tried really hard to get people into Malifaux, and I got traction with 3 people, and then they realized how difficult it was to get minis to the island, and they stopped. Like if they made it easier, it would be so much better.
I was going to ask what your meta's like there.
It doesn't exist because of that. Like
Just
I
you.
tried, but literally it's like, oh, it's like one step too many. I'm like, oh, come on, guys.
Dixon's meta is Vassal.
Unfortunately, yes.
Vassal, yeah.
I played for years in Virginia though. And Virginia's meta is like
Virginia's such a good meta.
Yeah, they used to be some of the best players in the world, and now they play, and they're still great players. Like Jim Dyson, he's still in that meta, and like Jeff Mansky, and you hear about these people still every now and then, but like apparently they don't like to play Basil.
Well, how did you guys hook up and start doing Rage Quit Wire together?
Well, Rage Quit Wire started back in I think we started back in either 2016 or 17.
Actually,
I started with a guy named Chris Yoon, he's an interesting gamer. He has strong opinions. He's pretty bombastic, dude. If you want to listen to some of our fun Chris Yoon episodes, take a look at that. But it was focused around Guild Ball, but Chris and I made the decision to name it the Rage Quit Wire because we wanted to be just a gaming podcast. So no matter what game we were playing, we could just talk about it because we're gamers. So we had a lot of episodes on Guild Ball, but also other tabletop games we played and even board games and stuff. So that pretty much was all the way through 2020 when they killed Guild Ball off. Chris couldn't get into Malifaux. Not to say he's not, he's a smart guy, but he just couldn't wrap his head around Malifaux. He wanted something a little more simpler. He didn't have, the drive for it. So I had to kind of reach out because I still wanted to create content because I was really enjoying Malifaux. And I think that right around 2020, we started making some general Malifaux things. But as I started getting games in, I was like, okay, this is where I'm transitioning to. Guild Ball's dead. That's fine. So I had to reach out to people to kind of co-host because I think if you have a podcast, one voice is kind of boring.
Sure.
So I started kind of reaching out to some locals. I started interviewing people for hey, you're a guild guy, tell me about the guild. And I think the first episode Dixon popped on was actually, we were talking about Neverborn. I think you were the guy I reached out to for the Neverborn.
Yeah.
And that was probably late 2020. And periodically Dixon and I met playing Guild Ball. We actually met in Tennessee, and we met briefly up in a big tournament in Virginia. So Dixon and I kind of ran into each other a couple times.
Yep.
And my favorite thing was when I played Dixon in a tournament in Tennessee, he was like, yeah, some people don't like me because, I'm kind of, pretty forward person. I was like, well, I got Chris as a podcast, host. So he's kind of a jerk too. So I'm used to that. So that's not going to scare me.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even like I'm trying to, because it's just, I try to say the truth. And then sometimes the truth is not kind. And that gets people put off. I completely expect you to be truthful to me. So if you are not kind to me, but it's the truth, it's like, it doesn't even faze me. I'm not even offended. So I expect
and Dixon,
others to
I don't
be
even
that way.
think you remembered meeting the couple times that we did.
Oh, I have horrendous memory for faces and names. Like people, I try very, very hard to like try to remember. You, I remembered, but
Yeah.
Chris,
Hey, there's that one
Chris,
guy.
no, Chris and John, I just couldn't remember. Like every now and then, I would just be like, "Wait, have I seen these people before?"
Do you remember me reaching out to you and being like, "Hey, you want to be on the podcast?"
No, I don't remember that. I really don't. I remember it happening, and that was it. By the way, the joke that I was gonna make is Bill also is to fault for me meeting you.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I think from there, so that was one episode, and I think probably Dixon didn't start becoming because I ended up bringing on my other buddy Chris. This is a guy that I just know from War Machine,
Mm.
and Chris is really good at Malifaux, so he was a really good second host. But from there, we brought on Dixon just kind of as a third voice because Dixon has a lot of good. He just has a different personality and a lot of different play styles. Chris is a very deep thinker when it comes to the game. Like he will think about how to tear your list apart, and he gets really deep into the game. Whereas I'm more kind of heart of the moment. I'm gonna do what I think is gonna work out in that moment, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. And Dixon's the nice little spice on top of it, just to agitate everybody, which is always fun.
Yeah, like my playstyle has always been
Instigate's probably a better word.
my playstyle has always been like I either A go all into your face or B force you to come to me.
The Dixon special.
Yeah, it's either I
Respect.
fastball special something into you and force you to interact with it, or I force you to come to me in a very bad position, and people are very unhappy about that.
Yeah, so I think probably sometime, probably late 2021, Dixon pretty much became a staple on the podcast, and especially when Gaining Grounds 3 hit. I guess that was a year and a half ago. Chris just became very disinterested in that Gaining Ground, so he stepped away, and Dixon took the mantle and became the number 2.
Yeah, I miss Chris because Chris like he was like the middle ground between you and I.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Did you have media experience before, like a radio or anything, or just hit the ground running?
Nope. I was a middle school and high school teacher, so I'm used to talking to immature kids, and I guess that translates well to nerds.
Yeah. Funny. Do you have a rage quit story that you like to tell, or
Oh, I got one, but Dixon. I don't know if you have one ready, but I have one that Yep, it's something.
Go for it because I'm trying to think of a different one that I haven't said before.
All right. So speaking of Chris and I played a lot because for a long time we were the only people playing Malifaux in Charleston. We'd have to travel to go to events, which was fun. We're good friends because of that. But there was a time, probably about 2 years ago, when I was playing Terra pretty heavy, right? And this is when, you could do the Terra kidnap thing if you wanted to, or you could just play Terra 1 and like you could do like Symbols of Authority and just pretty much auto score it if you wanted to. But Chris ended up reaching out to Dixon without me knowing. And he says, Dixon, we're going to a tournament, and if I play Pete, how am I going to deal with Terra? So behind my back, Chris is talking to Dixon about it, and Chris decides to play Neverborn. Well, apparently Dixon tells him, you want to know what's good against all this incorporeal stuff is Dreamer. So you should play Dreamer and then just, harass Terra and summon stuff and cause problems for Pete. So I end up catching Chris in this tournament. I think it was round 3. So we're playing for top table pretty much. And he drops Dreamer. I've never seen him drop Dreamer. I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even know you own these models. Like, okay, whatever. And so the entire game, he's harassing Dreamer. He's harassing Terra with these daydreams. Chris and I have had probably a dozen games with me playing Terra, and I've won most of those games. So I was pretty confident going in it. And Terra ends up getting close to dying by the end of the game. Chompy is causing problems, running rickshaw all over the board. And I think I end up losing that game by like four things. And then I'm just sitting there ticked off because this is just something he's never done. And I'm like, I don't know why he decided to do this, but it was freaking stupid. And I'm going to have to wrap my head around that for next time. He's like, oh, well, I was talking with Dixon. I was like, Dixon, there was a conspiracy against me in that tournament.
Just shot
And
one more.
I still have never forgiven Dixon for helping Chris out with that.
I presented the opportunity to you as well. You just never
Did you?
wanted it. Of course. We've talked after that of like lists and
I
stuff.
mean, we talk about games all the time, but I'm
Yes.
not going to say, hey, help me beat Chris.
No, but it started because of that.
Fair.
Yeah, we didn't used to talk about like lists and stuff until after you started noticing that Chris would come to me and ask me, and I'd be like, "Oh, this, and this is really good against whatever you're using." Yeah,
Yep.
and like you said, Chris is the type of player that he'll win the game before the game starts. So like before the game even begins, he'll just think about it for like a day or two, and then when he's at the table, he's already like he has all these plays already set. He just lets him go.
Also, and this is kind of like my runner-up rage quit, and this one's really quick because it's like maybe a sentence, but back before Cadmus got nerfed, we were playing in a tournament in Jacksonville, and Chris and I got matched up at the top table, and I just looked at him and I said, "If you drop Cadmus, I'm dropping this game. I'm not playing against Cadmus. So drop it if you want, but you'll get a rage quit."
And of course, Chris is like, "Oh, I win immediately. Done."
Yeah.
I mean, my rage quit is not as entertaining because mine was like real fast. And this is back when I'm playing Guild Ball. First game that I'm playing in Vassal, and I'm playing. And I think within 5 activations, I lose my captain and I get scored on 6-0. And I just immediately turn off computer, turn off everything. Don't even talk to the other guy. Discord off.
Dixon has disconnected from the game.
Just completely gone.
Yeah. Well, Irish goodbye, huh? Yep.
Oh, I was so salty back then. Oh my god, I was so salty. Every now and then I get like super like recently I talked about a game that I had with Zip, and in Malifaux, it's not as terrible. We played the game, so we know it's not that bad. But like when that happened to my Zip on activation, I think it was 5 of round 1. I just like, I need to go. Good game, you got me.
I tell you what, Malifaux has taught me to temper that a little bit because I have like lost important models turn 1 or early turn 2 and still have come back and either tied or won the game.
Oh yeah, I mean I still
like even when I played Angel and he smoked Sandeep like turn 2,
Mhm.
I still almost brought that to a tie. So I think Malifaux's taught me that it's a game where you can come back a little easier than, not easier, probably the wrong word, but it's more doable in Malifaux, I think.
Yeah. And against me, you have won multiple. I still, in my head, have the game with Lady Justice where you play Lady Justice too. It was probably the main reason why I love Lady Justice. Because you played that game so well and won that I was just like, I really gotta get, to play this crew. Like, it's so fun.
Yeah, I like Lady J too a lot.
Well, everybody in the Malifaux community that I've interacted with, they're always super cool, nice. What do you think it is about that tends to draw people like that?
I mean, I can tell you in my experience, it's the game. The game itself is different. The worst community that I've been in is the Infinity community because the game,
Really?
yeah, because the game is so polarizing. Like, there's
Hmm.
many points in an Infinity game where like something that seems innocuous will just lose you the game immediately. Like you take a walk action and then you just lost the game. Like it happens so much more,
See, I'd
right?
say that for like
But
War
in
Machine.
Malifaux, it's more like, hey, you made a huge mistake. Like you lost a key model that's supposed to be, your victories around this model, and you still came back from that. And that's happened multiple times. So I like that. I like the fact that in Malifaux there are more ways to come back from the game.
It honestly, and I don't know what to attribute it to, but it honestly reminds me a lot of Warhammer Fantasy community, because generally speaking, the Warhammer Fantasy community back from like 6th to 8th edition, you'd go to a tournament and it felt like a very gentleman game. Like, yes, I'm here to compete, but we're also here to, just enjoy the experience essentially. And
Yeah.
Malifaux to me is a lot of that, where it's like, here's what my crew does. Everybody's very open about it. And I don't know if that gets instilled by the community early, but Malifaux's done a very good job with that. And I think a lot of it also has to do with the 3rd edition that they released. I think it kind of went away from that all-star crew that they did in 2E, and it kind of went more keyword centric. And I think that brings a lot of people that like the theme, and they like the idea of a crew. And even though it's not necessarily the most powerful thing, you'll still see people in tournaments doing very well with that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and like I said, I don't know what kind of breeds that in Malifaux, but the community's done a good job of kind of policing that, which is what a community has to do. Is when you see something that goes against that, you kind of call it out.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think you actually are like in the. I think it's the keyword system, and it's kind of funny because like my
It's a
favorite.
smart move.
Yeah, my favorite tournament that I've ever had was a tournament where they said you can only have 15 points of versatile or auto keyword. It was literally I haven't seen that since, unfortunately, and it was my favorite tournament because
Yeah, they did that in a big tournament in Atlanta where you could only hire an out of keyword model once,
Oh wow.
and you could only hire a versatile model once in all the rounds. So once you did that, you had to cross it off.
well, this one was per game. You were allowed 15 points of either versatile or auto keyword.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that too.
So it was just like most of the list will still be within synergy, and you'll have like the outliers, but like that actually, I don't know, I loved it and I have fun, but I haven't
Yeah,
seen it
because
since.
I mean, then you only have what, maybe 2 models that are out of keyword or versatile.
Yeah, most lists only had 2 models that were like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so many different formats. Seems
Yeah.
like for the game.
Yeah, recently I've been seeing a spike on bans, and I like it, but I think Pete, I don't know how you feel about it, so I don't want to like.
It's fine. I actually don't mind it. We did a whole episode on it, and I think it has some cool. I think it's a cool option, especially for competitive play. I don't like it all the time though, because there's just some times where it's like, let's just see the cool stuff, right?
Okay.
And like it seems like the UK is kind of they're down on the double masters
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
type
UK has
format,
always
all that kind of stuff.
the UK have always been the European players have always been like at the forefront of like changing formats and changing the game for the community, for the tournament community, in every game system that I've ever seen. So it makes sense that they would try that also for Malifaux.
But you mentioned your play style a little bit, Dixon. What kind of what's your favorite type of table shenanigans?
So I love movement shenanigans. It is
Yeah.
by far my favorite thing. Uh, I always look for them in every crew that I have. The main reason why I love playing Lady Justice in Guild actually is because of 33.
Oh,
Because 33 makes it so that like Rocketeers or right with me models or anybody that flies becomes like even better, right? If you can see those angles. I blame this
sure.
on chess because in chess my favorite piece is the knight. and
Uh,
and ever since I was like I think I started playing chess when I was like 8 because of my dad. My dad is a huge fan of chess. I don't play it as much anymore because it's not as fun. But ever since I played chess and played with the knight, every single time I play a game like this, board game, miniatures, video game, whatever, I like mobility. So That I like any game where I can just like either slingshot something at you or force you to slingshot something into me.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Dixon move is taking a ridiculous model and throwing it, or two models, and throwing it slammed into the middle of your crew, preferably close to your deployment zone,
Yeah.
and just being like, "All right, well, you're either gonna have to kill these models, which are usually hard to kill, or you're gonna have to go around them." So I've adapted to that, where it's like, okay, I need like my own movement tricks against Dixon to either move his models out of the way or go past his roadblock. So
Yeah, yeah. I also have the pillow fort kind of thing, but that's like more rare lately, especially because of the GG.
yeah, I think my play style, or I guess a move that I traditionally go to, is I don't know if I guess I can call it stick your nose out there kind of tactic, but Dixon calls it the catcher mitt. But I usually put something a little durable out there. Like I'll put it just in your threat range and be like, you can go get this model, but then you're putting yourself in uh, probably a position where you're overextending to get it. And then if you do that, then I can obviously capitalize on that. I also like the tactic of, and it's probably more like in a zip type crew where it's just like, if I don't feel like fighting you, I'm just going to fly past you. I'm like, yeah, cool. You wanted to fight? I'm
See ya.
going over you. I'm
Yeah,
going past you.
Yeah.
nice.
Actually, by the way, 33, since it's an outcast model, I attempted to do the movement shenanigans in outcast. It's a little harder unless you're playing Infamous. And like we
Yeah.
played recently in our game, and I did something stupid in the thing, but I still ended up like I think in my opinion I was ahead when I
Yeah.
threw the giant model from Shrek, the Bat Omen. Dude, that model is sick. That model is so sick. Even against
Yeah.
Pete, I set up the model to even if he died, he was affecting Pete. It's like Pete couldn't actually kill the model until like a certain other model in his crew activated. I love it.
How many games would you guys say you played together?
Oof. I don't know. We're probably close to like 200.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say until summer hit, like Dix and I usually play. If we don't play every week, we probably play every other week.
Mm.
Summer's a little different because it gets a little chaotic, but we play quite frequently.
Yeah, we used
Nice.
to play like 3 times a week. And
Yeah, there was a couple. I think there was like a month or two there this past year where it was like, "Yep, okay, cool, let's play. Wednesday. All right, let's play Friday."
yeah, but like every now and then, I feel myself as like, okay, I'm gonna burn out if I just keep playing as much. So I try to like slow it down and play like once a week or once
Yeah,
every
I
two
think that's
weeks.
kind of what I did too.
Yeah, it's like I love the game. I don't want to stop playing the game, but I know that I have to slow down.
Yep.
Do you guys like Vassal? That's a tool that enables you to play.
Only because I can play friends around the world, but
Sure.
people will notice that I don't like look for randos. Like when it comes to vassal games, I'll wait for somebody that's like, oh yeah, I haven't talked to Lance in a long time, or I want to play against Brody, and I'll play against people that I'm closer with. No offense to anybody looking for random games on Discord,
Hmm.
but those are it's just unless you're a friend, I don't want to spend my personal time at home playing random people.
Yep.
It's like that's why I go to game stores and
Yeah.
tournaments. I can play and meet new people there. It's a little more personable.
It's the
So
best way to play. I don't disagree. Like it's the best way to play. Everything that he said, I agree with. Uh, really, there's not the only two things that I would add. Not even like disagree. Vassal allows you to get the best out of like your crews
yeah,
offline.
I agree with that.
Like you can set up, you can move, you can practice movement shenanigans, even flipping cards just randomly, and that's one of the best training tools. And second,
I think it helps you with auras and stuff a little bit better too, and
correct,
precise movement and
yes,
terrain.
I was going to
Terrain's
ask,
huge.
yeah,
like, does it translate when you play in person? You kind of see the aura
it
around your.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, it makes it actually better because in person there's a lot more permission, quote unquote. Like you'll like be usually either under or over more in person. So the fact that you're more exact actually helps. But what I was going to say, the second thing, just real quick, it is the fastest way for you to become a good competitive player. You will get violently destroyed because the quality of player in Vassal is significantly higher, but you'll also learn that much faster.
Makes sense. Yeah. It's a random question. What's your favorite color? And does it match up with your favorite faction?
No.
No.
My
No,
favorite
purple.
color is green, and the fact that
Uh,
my most hated faction is Resurrectionist does not match at all. Oh,
My favorite color is red, and it's hard for me to pick a favorite faction, but I do like Guild a lot. So
yeah,
that might be one of the reasons why I like Guild.
yeah. I don't know what it is, but in this GG, I love Guild. Every time I had, any games playing Guild, I was having fun.
Oh, I always get the itch to go back and play like Dashel or Lady J.
Same. Well, not for Dashel. Me is Tall and Lady J. Those two are calling me right now. Yeah. And
nice.
I don't like Lucius as much as I like those other two keywords, but he is both fun and one of the best masters in this GG. So if anybody plays
Yeah.
Guild, what are you doing not playing Lucius? Come on now.
There's so many references to in real life characters from like literature and myth in Malifaux. Uh, what you, can you name one that's interesting to you?
Yeah, I think probably the references that I like the most are on a model that doesn't exactly see as much play, but some people make them work. I am a big fan of Sue. I'm a big
Uh,
Johnny Cash guy.
sure.
Nice.
I listen to Johnny Cash quite frequently, and just the Man in Black, everything that's on that card just hits home with like all his references.
Yes.
And
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like if I play Parker, I will try to shoehorn that in where I can.
Nice.
That's dude. That is the man. I love this question, but like I am tied now that I'm like thinking about it a little bit more. Dread Pirate Zip and
I knew you were going to say Zip.
yeah, and Cervantes. Before that, it was Collodi. And the
Oh,
problem
okay.
is that Collodi is out of the game, so but he was by far my favorite thematically, like the name, everything. It was
What
just
are the
perfect.
references that you love with Cervantes?
Oh, Cervantes de Saavedra. He's the author of Don Quixote. And like everything about it, the windmills, the craziness, the fact that he is an unkillable god slaying knight.
I love the Escar Go ability. I just love that it's just Go Go.
It is amazing. I love it.
Well, and Dixon, you can probably share the title of your last Zip list that you played.
Oh, as you wish. I do. I
Nice.
mean, it is by far like I love that in Malifaux there are a lot of models that are not like super pop, like known, but like if you read books at all, you can find them. You're like, that's it. That's awesome.
Well, I actually like it when because there's the obvious ones, right? Like especially on some of the newer models, you see one and you're like, oh, that's kind of cute. But I like it when I'm talking to other Malifaux players and they're like, well, you know where that comes from, right? And then you tell them and they're like, oh, okay. Or they tell you and you're like, oh, that's really cool. I think another one of my favorites is off of the totem for Marcus, the rabbit. He
Oh,
the
Jackalope.
jackalope. Yeah, he's just has a nice little Monty Python reference in there, which is great.
It is awesome. Yeah, like this. This is the type of stuff that I'm talking about. It's like every single. I didn't know about the Talus, the giant robot that puts a soul inside the body, but like everything like thematic about the robot plus the rules fit with the mythos, and I learned something new at the same time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the Asian mythology seems like too.
Yeah, that's the one that everybody keeps like sharing stuff that I'm like, because I'm definitely like a history guy, but when it comes to a lot of the Asian mythology and stuff, I never really got big in. I'm not an anime guy.
Right.
Um, people say, oh yeah, you should check out anime. I'm like, oh, well, she sounds lovely, but yeah. So I think the one that really got me is people. I think it was Dixon was one of them. They were talking about the Tanuki, and you're like, you know what that comes from, right?
That is so
Yeah, like
funny.
these huge, red pandas with huge, nut sacks and stuff. And you're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
No, I didn't know.
fantastic.
I didn't know that.
The weird, in my opinion, the weirdest thing is like there's a bunch of power levels in those demons in the Oni that are just out of whack. Like the Tengu is the big one for me. I'm like, the Tengu is like in the mythology, it's like one of the most powerful creatures, and over here it's just this random scheme runner. This just makes no sense.
Well, speaking of models, if there was one based on you guys, what would it look like, and what keyword would you want it to be?
Oh wow.
I think if I was going to be in the game of Malifaux, I would definitely be in Dashiell's crew, right? Dashiell just seems like a believable man to me. I would just be like, yes, sir. What do you need me to do? I would, help the robots and help the recruits and get them all trained up and, save the world of Malifaux through the justice of the guild
Nice. I like that.
and maybe make a little money on the side,
Yeah, so you'd be like a
as
guard
the
Yeah,
guild, as,
yeah,
as the guild does.
you'd be like
absolutely.
a guard bandit or something like that.
Yeah, there you go. Crossover model. Yeah, because Parker's crew, you could do some cool side hustles with that. I actually watched I watched Gangs in New York last night because that's one of my favorite movies, and the sheriff that I guess he's just a police officer, but he's played by John C. O'Reilly, and I just the fact that he's like getting his hands in the pockets of all the gangs, and he's still kind of saving face as the cop of the 5 points. I'm like, very relatable character. I think that's the type of person. Matter of fact, I would have references on my card to Gangs of New York, so that's where that would be.
Huh.
Nice. How about you, Dixon?
I know this is gonna sound weird, but I would be either an amalgam or a mercenary keyword model. Probably closer to amalgam. Uh, and I don't know if I'd be a henchman or enforcer, but I'd definitely be like buffing others for like a small cut of your like, you know, you take damage, and I basically Faust. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think
Oh,
your character, Dixon, should have a reverse toss where you just toss yourself.
Bro, I think
This model can toss themselves 10 inches, just like Sandeep.
I mean, you're talking about secret passage. It's like I would have secret passage.
Good ability or good action.
what's the funniest nickname for a model made up by you or someone else?
Oh wow.
I have one, and it's right out of Dashiell's crew. I always call the executioners, and I call Reichart this as well. I call them Uncle Tickle Fingers because they have those huge executioner claws,
Oh yeah, I remember this.
and and that actually came from an army buddy when we used to play fantasy. I think one of his vampire counts, Count Lords or something on like the Dead Dragon. He always used to call him Uncle Tickle Fingers because he was going to come in and do unmentionable things to you with that abusive model. So a little bit of an inappropriate background with that, but still that's the nickname that I always just keep along because it just means they're going to try to do egregious things to you.
Yeah, dude,
A
that makes
bad touch.
that gives me like both flashbacks that are terrible and hilarious. Because when you played that model, I had to like literally skirt around him outside of like an 8-inch bubble. It was crazy.
Oh,
But yeah, mine is Rexy Boy, and it's been forever and a day. But like when we played back, this is like when we started playing, and they're like, "Oh, this model's garbage, right? Because he's 10-point model for a Malosaurus Rex." And then I start playing him with like Inhuman Reflexes and Scamper, and it's just a huge pain in the butt to deal with.
I will say when you play against Dixon, he has some of the weirdest nicknames for models that make no sense. He'll be like, Girly Magoo over here. I'm like, who are you talking about? Oh, obviously this model. Is like, that's not obvious, Dixon.
I remember what I said. I have an issue with like faces and names, so that happens even with models.
You're like my dad. My dad like doesn't know names at all. So he'd go like bowling on like Friday nights, and we'd be in the bowling alley playing video games and stuff. And my dad would be all like, "Hey Louie," or "Hey Amared," and I'm like, "Yep, that's totally Dixon." Just I don't remember what this is called. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
it's like I try. Like my brain just has this lockdown, and it won't remember it, and it's for everything. Everything that has a face and a name, and I'll be like, you know, the guy from the movie that does the thing.
One of the obvious big mechanics that's different from other games is using the deck for the random
Yeah,
you know
best
yeah
variance mechanic ever made.
yeah what other games that have mechanics you'd like to see in Malifaux, or the other way around, Malifaux in other games?
Oh, I thought about this long and hard. Magic has scrying. I want more effects like that. I want more effects because, like, the thing is that we have some models that do that. I don't think that we have enough models that do that.
Pretty powerful when you see it in the game.
Correct. Exactly, and it like
You're talking about Lady Yume, right?
it was not just Lady Yume. We also have your girl Kandara. We also
Sure.
have uh,
You can't. So the difference is Kandara can't get rid of it, though, right? Like you can't discard it or put it on the bottom.
also true, but scrying is not about taking it away. There's multiple versions of scry. I guess you're talking
Sure.
about like surveil, like look at it, you don't like it, discard it.
Well, scry in Magic, don't you look at it and you can put it on the bottom if you don't like it?
That is true. I forgot about that part. But yes, like the point that I
Is
guess
seeing a card.
I would like
Ah,
more ways to manipulate the deck. Is basically what I was trying to say instead of saying scry. But that's an example
Sure.
or
because
like calculate possibilities, brain.
not as disgusting because there's
Okay.
like four, yeah, because there's like
Like
four.
confiscated lore.
Oh my god,
Good lord.
dude, the most disgusting in my
Hey,
opinion.
let me look at your deck and get rid of all your good stuff.
Yeah, the type for most disgusting deck manipulation is the runes from Euripides 2.
Mm,
Pete knows this
Mm.
one very well. I played
He
against.
so good.
smiles.
Oh,
So good.
I'll let him tell his story in a second. But like the other one is Abandoned Honor from
That
Misaki
story.
1. Oh, Pete, you told me the story of when you played against Chris, and Chris would reach over the table.
Yeah, you didn't tell me this. Okay. All right. I guess I can share that. It's almost another rage quit, but that's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, like those are the two. It's like Euripides 2 and Misaki, just because like even what's her face? Zoraida? Yeah, Zoraida has that ability where like if you cheat in front of her, she gets to do that. But like those other two are just so egregious. Like the way that they do it is so painful.
Yeah, so the rune tokens are good with Euripides 2. So the first couple times I played against it, Chris Leopard was actually playing it. And I don't know what it is about Malifaux. I hate it when other people touch my fate deck. Like I just hate it. Like I hate them looking at my cards. I hate them doing stuff with it. And that game I played against Chris, he would use a rune token. He'd look at my card, and sure enough, it felt like every time he was pitching a severe. And I got so frustrated. I'm just like, I'm not playing against this crap. It's like, and the funny thing is, I then, within the last 6 months, played the keyword, and it felt very. I felt very justified doing the same thing. Especially, I think there was a game against Lance where I think I hit pretty much a severe every time and just threw it in his discard pile. I'm like, good. This is how I felt when it was happening to me.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's super powerful. It's so powerful. Sometimes like the funniest thing will happen. I know that it's happened multiple times with me where it's like there's like an 11 plus card and the black joker. So instead of discarding the 11, you just like leave the 11 so that they hit. And then they like, "Oh, why did you do that?" You'll know. And then
You'll know.
damage happens. Oh.
I think I think something that would actually be really, because like Dixon said, it'd be cool to have more of that, but obviously that can lead to some powerful things on the board. I think something that's unexplored that I was actually talking to Jesse about this because he's been playing a lot of Song of Ice and Fire is some kind of tactics board would be cool. Not necessarily exactly like a Song of Ice and Fire, but something where it's like different games either will have like a tactical deck, or in this case, Song of Ice and Fire, they have a tactical board, which is interesting because then you can have models that aren't on the tabletop, but they're affecting the game by what they're doing, kind of
Oh,
like politically in the background.
sure.
So there are some characters in Malifaux who I feel like, they're probably not going to be boots on ground all the time. They're a little more schemy. So it might be interesting to see something on the side that can affect in-game abilities, which is always cool.
I like that a lot too. That is very,
We
yeah.
we guys play against some of the best players on the top tables. Like who would you say at one point was the GOAT when they were playing their favorite keyword? And don't be modest if it's you.
It is not me.
No, it's definitely not me. I played. I got to play back in the day when I was like actually like very heavily competitive, and I was in a meta that allowed me to actually play against the best players. Uh, I still found. I think his name is Dan Weber, David Webster, something like that. Again, names and faces. I'm so sorry, but he played Nightmare better than I've seen anybody play this game even now.
Hmm.
And I have seen, the people online, the best players online, Landon being one of them. He hasn't played online in a while, but he still is one of the best players you see around. But David Webster from Georgia, that man crushed playing Nightmare better than anybody I've ever seen playing anything. And this was like 12 years ago. Like he won Gen Con, I think, every year playing Nightmare.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's tough to call out like a top player that you think's the GOAT because there's a lot of, you look at Landon and the Chicago crew, there's a good, you know, good handful of players coming out of there, good people in the Virginia meta. But I will say from my experience, the probably best player I've gone against in Malifaux specifically is probably Cody Hyatt. That dude, when he is playing a keyword that he has reps into and that he just can really leverage the advantage, he's an amazing player. Like when before, I'd say Terra got nerfed, but she's still very, very good. But when Aonis was, obviously more ridiculous with just printing pass tokens, Cody was wrecking people with Terra, and even after that, he was doing a lot of stuff with Neverborn and Explorers, where he was just wrecking people. So I was very happy to beat him one time that I played him because I played the ever balanced Hoffman 2 list before it got nerfed. So I was able to win the day with that by like a point. So I was like, I'm glad I had to use like this busted master to, leverage a win against you, Cody, but I'll take it because you're a really good player.
Not only did you play that, you also had Litline Code, which shut
Yep.
down like every way that
Oh,
you
he
had.
brought Candy out of keyword, right? Because he was going to attack Hoffman with his own
Claw.
attack before it got nerfed. You placed the model within an inch of the attacking model. So Candy was thinking of attacking Hoffman and placing it into his crew, and he second hired Nakima. So he was just going to kill Hoffman with Nakima. He was playing Zoraida too, I think.
Mm.
But I bring a coat, and most people, for some reason, don't bring a coat on Hoffman too. I'm just like, that seems
Huh.
like a mistake because of kidnap shenanigans, and I ended up staying put and helping win the game.
Do you guys ever feel unbeatable with the right crew and the strats and schemes? And
No,
no,
Not anymore.
well,
not
I
anymore.
think also I tend to try and lean towards modesty when it comes to anything in life. So
Mm.
when I go against an opponent, I don't assume that I'm the better player, and even if I know the person, I'm not going to assume that, this is a win for me.
Mm.
I can feel advantaged in a matchup, but I feel like I still have to play correctly to win that game.
Right.
And there's been a lot of games that have helped me get that way in Malifaux, because there have been games in Malifaux where I'm like, oh, this is a slam dunk win, and then I lose. So I think modesty just has helped me to be like, yeah, this isn't like unbeatable. I was actually I wouldn't say surprised, but in Captain Con, when I went undefeated with Molly, I wasn't surprised, but I was happy to be doing so well in a competitive environment like that.
Yeah, I would say like that was when you were playing your best.
When I was like slam dunking Molly 1 everywhere.
This is not an exaggeration. I played you for years, and the best Malifaux you've ever played is with Molly, because even when, well, that and Tull, like those are the two that are very, very close. But Molly was like you were consistently doing
Oh,
like
she's
big
still in the
plays.
bag. So when I want to get that way, she's still there for reaching.
It's not even like I wish I was like you play, if you could play Pete when he's playing Molly, and like you actually want him to play his hardest. It's so weird how like beautiful mind it
So
becomes.
you would say Molly's my closest to being like not unbeatable, but real like like top quality game from Pete.
Yeah, if you want to win a world championship, you just let Pete play Molly, and hopefully he won't make that many mistakes. And
That's fair.
he will win the world. Like that's how ridiculous. Like the other one, because like he was the closest I've ever seen to play like Cackle, and Cackle is a world champion. Like it's that high level. Yeah. They were very close.
Well, I'm very, very happy to hear that, especially since I stole a lot of the ideas from Cackle.
I mean, you did a fantastic job of copying him. Holy crap!
I'm a good student of the game. What can I say?
Huh?
You ever feel like you couldn't win no matter what with a crew?
I tell you what though.
Never.
I do feel like that Molly crew, I can compete with almost anything.
Mm.
But I will say, if you want Dixon's version of that, I feel like there's a lot of like Pandora 2 games where it's very difficult to deal with Dixon. Like he might lose the game, but he's going to make it miserable for his opponent. Is that the appropriate word? So inefficient to play against that Pandora crew when it's run by Dixon.
I wish that was as good as I was back in the, like I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago, because like I've stopped playing Pandora because of friends.
Yeah, because you want to keep friends.
I mean, you guys all told me how miserable. No pun intended.
No,
It was
hold on. I told you I don't care if you play Pandora. However, if I'm playing a new keyword that I have very few games into, I would prefer not to, because she doesn't play Malifaux like other keywords.
Yeah, but that's like 3 out of 4 games that we play.
Like okay, so here's a good example of this, right? I was playing, what was I playing? Maybe it was Tull. Maybe it was. Probably. It was some keyword that has like a bunch of little pushes.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they kind of get into position and all this other crap. Anyways, Dixon slams Pandora into the middle of my crew, Pandora 1, puts up that stupid whatever the shadow aura is that reduces your movement by 2.
Grasping
so now all these little like movements that I have are now 0 because I'm in this stupid aura, and I can't do anything to her because I'll get stunned. And I'm just like, so I guess I'm not learning this keyword because of Pandora.
So I don't remember the keyword because it sounds more like Trixie, because I do that when I play against Trixie because it shuts down Scamper.
It might even have been Sand Deep when I was first getting into him.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't remember.
It's been a while, but it was one of those moments where I'm like, all right, Pete, you get nothing.
Yeah. I was like, man, I'm glad I'm learning this keyword, Dixon. Thanks a lot.
I still have in my bank memory jokes. Anyway, I played a game. This is like 3 years ago. I think it was GG2 at the time. And I was playing in the MWS against somebody that was playing at the time. The guys that do Ancestors are like super OP. What was it called? Whatever called that master. Yanlo. And he's playing Yanlo. He doesn't get out of his deployment zone. I played Pandora 1 into that crew, and there's a lava pool literally within 3 inches of his deployment zone, and I just dump everybody into that lava pool. My opponent
and
was
that's also
livid.
something that just it's probably good for especially newer players, but even seasoned players. If you're wasting time fighting off models in your deployment zone or close to it, you need to find out how to like get around that because if you're just wasting APs back there, you're not scoring points for that game.
How about the flip side of that? Do you ever feel like you play a crew and just I like can't do anything with this?
I really
Let's see here.
don't.
What's a crew I've given up on?
I've had games where I feel like that, but I haven't had like moments where I like this keyword is hot garbage. I'm never gonna play it.
I feel like honestly, it shouldn't be this way because I know it's a good keyword,
Mm,
but I have never gotten this keyword to do anything remotely useful to me.
mm,
Maybe it's a playstyle thing,
okay.
but whenever I play Mayfang, I'm just like,
Mm.
I hate this keyword.
Me-
Like I just can never get it to work.
May one
Meanwhile,
or two or both?
Both.
yeah,
Oh,
I've tried both.
wow.
no, he for some reason he has like a mental block with her, just like I have a mental block with like Kin. Like literally, I love
Mm.
the look of Kin. I am horrible with it, and the same thing with Perdita. Like I am horrendously bad with both keywords, and I love them. I think I lost like to this day still 20 games in a row with Perdita. Like I'm that
Yeah,
bad.
I mean, I know Mayfang is solid, but I just like just something about it.
Yeah.
Just can't get it to work.
Well, we play where I play Mei Fang, either version, and it's just always like a really strong. Like you're like, what am
Yeah,
I doing?
yeah.
So yeah, it's
Mm.
not the keyword. Like we've seen people like Brody, if I remember correctly, it was Brody playing Mei Fang
No,
too,
a
right?
lot of people do great things with May,
Yeah,
and I'm just like, I ain't about that life apparently.
but yeah, like there are keywords that just don't mix with people, and whenever we find the keyword that's bad for us, we're like, oh well, that sucks. I liked it, but I'm bad at it.
Yeah.
Besides playing games, what do you guys like to do to chill out, relax?
Huh.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different things I do. I do a lot of porch sitting and a lot of pipe smoking. I like a good cigar, I like good pipe tobacco. So we'll sit back out with the family, chat it up. I enjoy the company of people in general. So that's generally what I'll do. I'll also use that as, reflective time, prayer time, do some learning, things like that.
And
Nice.
mine is like I read books. It's different every time. I used to smoke cigars with my friends, which is a thing that I enjoyed with Pete actually when I went to Texas.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Most of the time, it's just like I just get a random paperback from 40K or something, and I read it. I wish there were Malifaux paperbacks, to be perfectly honest. I remember
Yeah.
reading back in the day the rule books. They still do it now, but like the rule books had the story of Malifaux written in them in such a way that it was just like you could just open them, start reading it. It was hilarious. Like my favorite excerpt is still Seamus kills an entire train of people, makes them into zombies, and dumps them into the guild. And the way that it was written, it was just so entertaining. And then he escapes because like the guild is trying really hard to stop him, but he is Seamus. And then somehow freaking Rasputina gets involved, and Seamus is like, "Whoa, gotta dip now, gotta dip now."
Well, how about movies? What do you think the best movie series is?
Series.
I mean, I'm not even going to try. I mean, it might seem like, almost a cliche, but I don't think you can beat the Lord of the Rings movie series. It's just, all the way Fellowship to the Return. It's a fantastic set of movies.
Uh Man, I mean, I don't have an IP that I love anymore. It used to be Star Wars.
Hmm.
It used to be.
I mean, you can just say the original or whatever you like. You don't have to say I love the entirety of Star Wars.
Well, that's the thing. Like that, those movies are like 40 years ago, And I used to love even the extended universe. Like the Boba Fett comic series was fantastic. And then they took the character, made a TV series, and nothing about him is there. There's nothing about the Boba Fett that I knew. So like,
Yeah, I think the thing that annoys me about the new Marvel and the new Star Wars stuff is it seems like they'll do either a half season or a season where it's like, oh, this is a really cool thing, but then
yeah,
they'll start using it to catapult new shows off of. Like the whole purpose seems like to just catapult the new idea. And I mean, I just think that takes away from the story of your, like instead of telling an interesting story, you're just trying to sell a new show that's coming
a
out, which
new
is
product.
definitely annoying.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it went from this is an IP that we love to a Disney product, and it's just I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know. So I'm not gonna say the Lord of the Rings just because Pete said it. I did love the original trilogy, but then they made the Hobbit movies, and I'm just like, all right, never mind, never mind. This is
I
gonna get
mean,
touched too.
I mean, The Hobbit was at least entertaining, and there was a bunch of plot holes. And obviously, when you have a small book and you make it 3 movies, you're going to throw a bunch of extra crap in there.
Yeah.
Uh, but I like to look at The Hobbit the same way the Hobbit book was. It was designed for children,
Hmm.
and when you look at the Hobbit movies, there's a lot of childish scenes. Like you think of Bomber, going into the barrel and like rolling down and squashing all these goblins and twirling around with these swords. And it's just a fun movie. Like I don't
Yeah.
hate it. I still go back and watch The Hobbit and enjoy it
I guess I just got.
through that lens.
I guess I got too sidetracked by too much negative stuff. Like I when I say negative stuff, I mean like I didn't like certain things, so it just kind of pulled me out of the movie. And
Yeah.
because of that, I wasn't able to like enjoy the silly things. But I think to everybody else, you're right because the movies made money. So it's I guess it's just
Yeah. Like I said, there's some obvious plot holes and there's things that they had to add, but and there was also like a director change in the second movie that Peter Jackson just randomly had to come in and try and save. So that's why the second one's probably the worst one.
Oh, that is so sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, if we're not talking about IPs like that, there's a movie that I every now and then I watch again. It's called The Edge of Tomorrow. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
probably the movie that it was so good that I even read the manga that it was based on. That like I wish more TV was like it. I'm not a huge fan of Tom Cruise himself, but man, that guy can act.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, that movie is like in the manga that it's based on. It's like it's crazy nuts. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but it's like it's about literally exactly about the movie, but in a more anime way. It made no sense.
You guys ever try creating your own game?
Yes,
No.
I have. I've made 2, and people swear to me that Moonstone is not based on the system that I made.
See, and I think Dixon has a good mind for like mechanics and how they could work and like how to balance like these stats versus that stats where it's too much versus too little for like the point cost. Whereas I put myself in the category where I think most nerds are, but I think I like to think I'm a little more realistic about it where it's like I will wish for things, but I don't sit here and pretend like my ideas are like super. That's why when people ask me like, "Oh, what models need to be nerfed or fixed?" I'll say it, but in reality, it's like I don't have an actual like reason for it. I'm more kind of
Hmm.
like heart of the cards, like what I feel about it. Whereas I think a lot of nerds put too much value and they're like, oh, well, this and you carry the 2 and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think you're being a lot smarter. Like, I think you're acting smarter than like what you're saying. Like, you need to, I don't think you've actually put yourself in the shoes of a developer and aren't putting actual like as much thought into it maybe as it needs to be.
Mhm.
But there are some at that higher level where I'm just like, okay, yeah, I definitely think you know more about balancing the game than I do because honestly, I don't want to put that much thought into it because I just enjoy the game and I'll let nerds like Dixon actually quibble over the details.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like I've always liked game design, but I've been focusing more lately because I'm already at an age that like my brain is no longer the same as when I was younger. So like the problems about names and faces is getting worse, right? And that actually affects me playing. So whenever I play Pete, I'm trying to win, but I am not. I know for a fact that I was like, if I try to be competitive, I'm not gonna have as much fun because I'm gonna get frustrated. So instead of me trying to do the things that I used to do before, I try to adapt. So when we're playing, I'm constantly adapting to whatever Pete does, and I find a
Hmm.
lot more fun that way. And it's kind of hilarious because like Pete will do things that finally make me stop and think for like 5 minutes.
I
Yeah,
don't know if that's a compliment, but
no,
okay.
no, that is a huge. That I usually like. Oh, I moved this mod on do X. That's basically what I do most of the time when we're playing, right?
Yeah.
But every now and then, people do stuff that I'm just like, what am I gonna do now?
I like your tactics board idea there, Pete. And
Yeah.
anything anything in particular you'd like to see in fourth edition or whatever's next for Malifaux?
I actually think that Malifaux can just stay away from another edition. Like I
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
if they I don't think there's anything game wise. Maybe pass tokens is the only thing that's kind of a problem sometimes,
Yeah.
but I think everything else is fine. But I think they could do a big hat errata for most of the big changes they want to do.
I
And
wholeheartedly
I
agree.
don't think we need a new edition to do that, because I think the keyword system is working out really well.
Mm.
And I don't think they need it. I don't think they need a fourth edition, if I'm being honest about it.
Yeah, the big
Gotcha.
hat thing actually introduced something that made the game not need a fourth edition. To be perfectly honest, I
Hmm.
Yeah, because edition changes are usually done because there's a needed shakeup. Going back to like 40K in fantasy, there would be big issues. Like, for example, I think it was fifth edition for 40K or something. They introduced flyers, and flyers were obviously a problem because not everybody had one and there wasn't ways to deal with it. So then the new edition came out with ways to easier, deal with those problems. And those edition changes would then bring these new books out to help bring crappy armies back to towards the top. And like I said, I don't think you just need that in Malifaux. I just don't think it's needed.
no, I usually keep a better track of like other game systems because again, I love game design, so I kind of like keep track of like 40K, War Machine, all that stuff. 40K has screwed the pooch 7 times in the last like 2 years alone with edition changes and codex creep and all that stuff. So I don't want that for Malifaux. I really don't. There are three things I would like to change about Malifaux, but it's not like enormous. It's more like little tweaks here and there. For example, a great quality of life for new players and old would be you can use a soul stone to get a suit after you flip the card instead of before.
Hmm.
There are way too many times that it's just a feel bad moment, or you flip the card and it's the suit that you had used the soul stone for, and it's just like, well, I just wasted that. It's just completely done. So I would like that to be changed because it doesn't make the variance OP. It makes it so that people can actually make smarter decisions and it's less stress in your head. The second thing is cap tokens at 5. People have told me about this. It is the biggest frustration of a whole bunch of players. I personally don't see an issue with it. That doesn't mean that I don't want to change for others. And it's literally it's the one gripe about tokens that I see everywhere. Why are tokens infinite? And I was like, you know what? Fine. I think it's fair. And like Pete said, I thought about it for the numbers part, and I think 5 is like the perfect cap.
Are you talking
Hmm.
about things like blight tokens and such?
Yeah, any token, you cap it at 5. Period.
Yeah,
You can't have more
I'd
than
be okay with
5
them.
Yeah, you can't have more than 5 tokens on something, either a model or a player. So that's one. The second thing. So first, uh, be able to stone for a suit after flip. 2, cap tokens at 5, and 3, and this is like only for judges because every judge has told me the same thing. Like people that love the rules, make the grammar consistent.
Hmm.
They hate that with a passion of 1,000 burning suns. It really makes some rules judging like impossible, so they have to like defer to like feeling.
Yeah, because you'll be like, well, in this situation they ruled it that way, but in this one they ruled it another way.
Yeah, and it's like it's not, and it's specifically because of the grammar is not consistent. So one of the big ones for like the last 2 years was Sandeep 2. When does Sandeep 2 trigger? Pete, can you like elaborate a little bit more? Like Sandeep 2.
Yeah, so I think it's student of all, where you can discard a card to take an action,
Yeah,
take an elemental's action through the academic, and it's not 100% clear, but the community's basically said yes, it happens when you so it happens before you go through your activation. So whereas it's a little clunky, so some people were playing it as end of activation, you can do that. So
yeah,
most people settled on beginning of activation, though.
yeah, and now it's like on a whole bunch of FAQs, either official or unofficial, because the way that it's written. It's not, the only thing they needed to do is add the words at the beginning of this model's activation or that
Yeah.
model's activation, but they didn't do that.
The timing, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, those three things. If literally the soul stone just for quality of life, the thingy that we just talked about with the make grammars consistent, and yeah, that's just little things,
Hmm.
Yeah, and the token
D-
cap, obviously, yeah.
Dixon, you had mentioned Collodi. Are there
Mhm.
any other dead man's hand
No, it's just him.
models you'd like to see back?
No, I mean all of them.
No,
I would like for all of
all
them
of
to come back for a flavor thing, because I don't think there's any reason whatsoever. Like Ryle could just be Melissa Core, and you could just use
Hmm.
the model as Melissa Core, and it should be perfectly fine. Uh, freaking the master from Arcanist should just be the robot guy. I forget his name, Hoffman. Yeah, so
Hmm.
I mean, you can literally just separate, because like Barbaros in what's her face, girl from Neverborn,
Lilith.
Lilith. They could be interchangeable, or you could just make the return guy caster be Lilith. Like literally, it doesn't make any sense that these models are out of the game.
Yeah, I think so. One, I don't care about any of the keywords um, that are out of the game because of that. I don't. I came in at M3E, so I have no attachment to any of these masters.
Mhm.
Like Dixon, obviously loving Collodi to death.
Yeah,
I think Dixon just wants to become one of Collodi's puppets, but that's fine. I'm more confused with what Weird is doing with this and why it was initially put into place, because I feel like the idea is really cool. That's one of the coolest ways I think you could do a rotation in a tabletop game.
yeah,
And and I think we've discussed it on the podcast before, where you could use that as a way to be like, okay, Collodi was like a negative play experience. So was Ramos. So we're going to kind of tweak them a little bit and then we'll rotate them out. Hey, we see Big Hat and we see Sonya kind of sucks. So we'll go ahead and rotate them in. We'll tweak them. And then when we're ready to bring them back out, we'll bring them out. And I think that would be a really cool way to kind of take this stuff that is not good, fix it for a while, play test it,
Mhm.
and then maybe in a couple of years do another rotation.
yeah,
Maybe if something's too OP, if we don't feel like we can balance it, put it in Dead Man's Hand for a while.
yeah. Also, we've noticed that the community loves working with Weird on models, so they could just make that events. We saw
Like
that
Mia.
with this new the whatchamacallit, the girl, I forget her. I'm so sorry.
Mia.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's a thing. That's a community content kind of thing that they could just do every year, and people would be excited for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like joke about models being Yasunori. So put Yasunori into the thing. It's a model that you've never seen.
Well, you could even do it where it's like we're doing an event and the top 2 finishing keywords come out of Dead Man's Hand.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I
Cool.
mean, it's 100% a thing that people would love to like work towards. It's like, oh, we can actually make an event where like Collodi goes to either the guild or Neverborn, but not both. and people would work towards that. Be like, I don't want
Oh, yeah.
him there. I don't want him in Neverborn, or you know.
But did you have a favorite Gaining Grounds from third edition?
GG2.
Too.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Why GG2?
It was super aggressive. People were murdering each other. Yeah.
Isn't GG2 what Symbols of Authority was in?
Yes.
That's not a very murdery pool.
Oh my god, you don't know.
I mean, I do know. I participated in GG2. I know perfectly well.
Nah,
I actually think GG, what was that, 0 was the... No, maybe it was 1. What was the one where you had like the bounties or whatever?
That's 1 and 0.
Yeah.
Both of them actually had it. They have different
I would
names.
argue 0 and 1 were the most gilly.
They were the most combo intensive because we had things like, if I remember, it was still called Power Ritual, and people would leave scrap, and there was like a list in Arcanist. I mean, not a list in Arcanist. Every list in Arcanist had the stupid robot that drops scrap. Doesn't matter. Like, it was like, oh, you separate 6 points or 8 points to put the stupid arcane reservoir thingy on this thing, and he would just sit on your deployment zone and run in a circle, like literally walk, drop a ski marker, do nothing.
I
Walk,
think
drop a ski marker,
honestly,
do nothing.
like I was gonna say 2 because 2 was fun. Like you had symbols, you had like the ley lines, and you had I think there was another one where you had to kind of push, and there was a token like a lodestone on somebody.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I'm going to be a prisoner of the moment here and say that I think GG4 is probably, it's a fun GG, and it might be the most balanced GG.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's probably one where you can still kill stuff and there is a place for it, but it's more interesting, I think it's more diverse and interesting than the other Gaining Grounds.
No pun intended. It's the most interactive GG that we played.
Yeah.
Yeah, by far. Like, you don't have to stay in one place and combo into doing something. You just go and do things throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
Stuff the ballots in an election year. I like that.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, start the ballots. You have to win like in 6 different places. You can't lose in your home ground, because if you lose in your home ground, that is just a free VP for your opponent. So you have to like constantly be like defending like 6 points in the table. It's really, I like it a lot. It's hard, but it's like fun.
Well, I'm just about to the end of my list here. Questions, and I guess my last one is: got any words of wisdom, Malifaux or otherwise?
I think I probably got 2. The main thing is just kind of like, if you get familiar with your crew and do what you want to do in Malifaux, like you're going to be successful eventually. Because I think sometimes people do get too hung up on like counter picks, like, oh, I need to bring this to counter what that crew's doing. But if you're just doing what your crew does very well, you'll be in most games. And I think that's the best way to approach it. Just become very familiar with your stuff. And the second thing is just, I think, putting everything in its proper place, kind of like what Dixon said with, not trying to get burned out or try to be too competitive, because then you're not having fun. It's like, just remember, Malifaux is a game. It's there for entertainment and community. And as long as you keep it in that proper place, you're going to enjoy the game a lot. If you become too stressed out trying to win games and, do things perfect every time, you're not going to enjoy the game. So I think that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah. Mine was just going to be like, it's about Malifaux only. If you want to get better at the game, regardless of what level you want to get to, download Vassal. Literally, even if you're not going to play against anybody else, just on the unpack, just like putting models on the table, it is the easiest and the fastest way for you to just like get things going.
Right on. I like it. Well, that's all I got, guys. I really appreciate your time. Yeah,
it was a lot of fun, and we And I think there was one other question you had on there, which goes perfect with the outro.
Oh, I missed
Is
one.
we have not, at least I haven't, Dixon. I don't know if you have. Have you actually ever flipped a table when you
Oh,
were
yeah.
flipping cards?
Physically, no. I've had people flip the table on me on Magic.
So
Really?
I won't flip the table. I have done it where I will take whatever's physically in hand. Usually it's cards, especially in Malifaux. And if I throw the cards on the table and say I'm done, that's my equivalent to flipping the table. Be like, I'm done with this, not playing the game anymore, don't care.
Yeah.
Most notoriously at Captain Con in like 2021, I was playing against Sam and I was like, I know what? Threw the cards down. I'm like, Sam, I'm done. You got the game. I'm going to go get a beer.
Yeah, that was. You're like, I'm out. This is. Gotta get that drinking.
Yeah, but with that being said, make sure that you guys are flipping cards and flipping tables. And we'll see you all next time.